Hello, my friends. Welcome to another Wednesday episode of the Salt Circle. I'm your host, Daniela, and every Wednesday we come together to discuss themes like death, dying, and bereavement. And we come to, galvanize our grief journey or, navigating the awareness of our own mortality. So this is really meant to just be a non-judgmental space where we can, share our own insights, our triumphs, our struggles, be curious, be authentic, and find other people that might relate or who might have some kind of insight for us or practical advice. So please feel free to share. Sorry, the bugs are loud tonight. With today also being September 11th, I do also want to have a lot of respect and reverence for those who lost their lives in New York on the attacks on the World Trade Center. As a New Yorker, I remember being in school and getting an announcement over the loudspeaker. But before that, there was, some teacher or guidance counselor that really quickly came into our class and asked for a couple of kids to be, to come out. And then I expect it's because the announcement, they didn't want some kids to know that their parents were, injured or possibly worse, which for most of them that was the case. So, um, you know, I don't know, just being in that environment, everyone was affected in some way or another. So I definitely want to navigate today with a lot of I don't want to say we're walking on eggshells. I don't want to say that we're going to censor ourselves or be, not honoring ourselves or the work that we're trying to do here. Shadow work is hard work, it's tough work, and it is work. And just like what happened on 9/11 of all those years ago, we shouldn't minimize what has happened or will happen to us and how we're going to navigate that. So, that being said, let's get on into it. But I do want to check first to see if anyone has left a comment or, said anything. Okay. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, it looks like we're live and running, so that's great. Sometimes you don't know with me because I always mess up the things, but I guess since no one's commenting, I'll just like talk as if I would talk to a friend, and hopefully some friend does show up and can, appreciate the things that I want to discuss and has, something that they want to discuss with me, maybe. Um, so I'm dealing with loss of multiple people after a my biological family was always very, very dysfunctional and very uh just irrational, we'll say. And when the deaths occurred, the irrational bullshit didn't stop, and that's something that I wasn't prepared for. But what I really also wasn't prepared for was the propensity to how cruel and undignified um someone's death could really be. And that's, coming from a space where I thought there was some kind of lotus of control that I was able to exert. And clearly that's not the case, but then when you come across the remembrance for an event like the September 11th World Trade Centers, collapsing because of those terrorist attacks, I couldn't imagine navigating that kind of grief. It's one thing, I think, to come from learned dysfunction and chaos. But I think it's another thing when you've never had to deal with those kinds of themes. Your family was, pretty well adjusted. Like every family has fights and goes through things, but not to the point where, if you know what I mean, like the true dysfunction that can occur with really ill families and generationally traumatized individuals and mental illness that's unmedicated, the hell that can be. So when someone doesn't go through that, when someone's parents aren't the source of that, and then those parents are, killed in a way that was completely unforeseen, completely. Yeah, and this, I guess, applies for anyone, I think that level of something being taken from you when there was no, oh, my dad's a drug addict. And I've always known, the issues with drugs or whatever. And I've seen him overdose. So therefore, I get, when you're a kid and you don't have to, you're not faced to death that intimately. Is that more traumatic? I don't know. I don't know, but it really had me thinking today because and this is where my ADHD takes over and I go like a million different places, but so when my grandfather died, he died on the floor because nobody knew that he fell, kind of type deal. And when I had to clean up his remains, I really did think, I was just like, you know what? I can deal with this. Not that I should, but I have been through so much dysfunction and bullshit that this seems like a natural progression of that dysfunction and that generational insanity. And so I felt almost prepared for it, you know what I mean? But when I think when people are faced with loss or when their grieving journey comes from a place of complete unprecedence, absolute, an act of some complete, outside force that is beyond disease or age, or even like, you can imagine people getting into car accidents or even being struck by lightning, but, hijacking by airplane, building collapse, whatever the case may be, I don't know. So I really wanted to kind of focus this episode or this live chat, this podcast, whatever you want to call it. I really wanted it to focus on how to navigate onward from a death that was really extreme, or, a dying process that seemed by all accounts to be undignified and unexpected. Um so definitely comment, definitely let me know what you think. Because, if you're here, you might be handling some kind of grief, or you might be on your own healing journey and grappling and navigating death and dying, or, complex grieving. So I definitely want you to feel like this is a safe place to just talk to me. If you don't feel comfortable, that's totally fine, but at least have the conversation and the open, authentic expression with yourself, to yourself. You can talk to yourself out loud in your bedroom. You can, whisper to yourself. You can just say it in your head. Whatever, I think it's just like an important thing to discuss. People don't really talk about death and dying. It's a taboo for the most part. And I don't think that that's right. Death and dying, whether someone else's or our own, is a phenomenon every human, every living thing will go through. So this universal experience should not be taboo and should not be not talked about. So this is a time, this hour, I guess we've been streaming for 17 minutes. So like the next like 45 minutes or whatever, this is a time where we can do that shadow work, that background work to fortify our inner selves. And just like, 45 minutes a day, not even a day, 45 minutes every week, it really can culminate to something. And so this is what I want the salt circle to be. I do apologize if I get sidetracked and I start jibber jabbering. It happens to me, but I'll try my best to stay on track. For me, like I said, my grandfather died in a pretty brutal and undignified way, and I am, really having a time navigating it. If I'm not outraged with anger and shame that I let this happen, then I feel so incongruently sad and just upset about not just the death, but everything that came before the death. Even the stuff before I was alive, how his parents has affected him, so his life culminated in this kind of death. And it's hard almost blaming people for, you know, the life that they lead kind of brings them to the end of life that they will have. And I'm talking from a place of pretty extreme dysfunction, so you don't have to take what I say with any, you don't have to care for it at all, but I'm just talking out of my own experience. Sorry, I have a visitor. Mhm. Oh, he's so angry with me. And I guess that kind of just brings me to my next point, that, you know, we can have complex relationships with people, especially if it's end of life and it's a dysfunctional relationship, or it's a parent that we've been no contact with, or it's, a spouse that cheated on us that now all of a sudden is dying because his liver's failing or whatever the fuck the case is. There can be so many instances that we're faced with a death out of nowhere. Someone gets into an accident, someone's killed, so many things can happen. Nothing is guaranteed, and I'm sure we've all heard that so many times that it seems pedantic and benign. But the I think just like shadow work is very dependent on meeting ourselves and being upfront with who we are inwardly and not being ashamed of it. I think that is something that we can apply to these taboo or tough themes. Um, with death and dying, the afterlife, our religious beliefs, or, what we want to happen to us after we die, or you know what I mean? To just be honest with ourselves of what we want and what we expect, and then seeing, are we headed towards that? Are my behaviors, you know, again, I think of my grandfather a lot. So he was as sick as my father. My dad was a very heavy drug addict, and as a drug addict, you become a career criminal and an abusive person and very volatile. So since he was, a teenager, my father has been a heavy drug addict. And since then, my grandpa, or my father was the drug addict. I'm sorry. I feel like, whatever. But my grandfather really just always wanted to protect his son. And I think that turned into codependency, turned into enabling, turned into full on equally delusional and addicted to his son being okay. Like, I think his enabling took on such a gnarly form to the point where, I really realized it when, my dad was stealing my grandma's hospice medication, and the hospice nurse confronted me and she's like, "We can't come here anymore because of your father." And it was the first time in 30 years that anyone had really validated what was going on in that house. So it was a very, very bittersweet moment. So I look at my grandfather just kind of like, you have, and my grandmother too, because even my grandma like yelled at the nurse and me, and she's like, "Leave my son alone." It's like, grandma, like, but grandma just didn't care. She just wanted to fucking die, I think. At that point, she was ready. She just wanted to meet Jesus. She was ready. But grandpa's death was and is a lot harder for me to deal with, I think, because the dysfunction just continued. And I don't know. And I think there's something to be said about really having a moment for yourself when you've lost someone in a really tragic or traumatic way. Um, and that could be either that person has died or that person has done something and has fundamentally died. I had this friend name, his nickname was Smiley. And out of, Smiley was always a cool guy to hang out with. He was best friends, or not best friends, but he was like really cool friends with my best friend named Zycal. And one day we just heard that Smiley got arrested because he was, on a PCP bender. And like ended up just shooting some kid in the face in the parking lot of a Kennedy's Fried Chicken in fucking in like Poughkeepsie. And I just remember just like, oh my gosh, like, dude, like, why? Like, wait, what? Like, wait, what? Your life is over. And the same thing when, like, I had this other friend, and I won't say his name, but like when he had like two kids by this literally schizophrenic girl, and they were living in a battered women's shelter with like this infant little baby and like a newborn basically. And he got arrested for doing a drive-by shooting. It's just like, dude, like if you didn't fuck up your life already, you just made it so much worse. You know, Jessica became a crack whore. I found out Crystal was a crack whore. I never knew that. I just thought she was so fucking skinny and pretty, but no, she always was a crack whore. Did she get Jess into it? You know, like the 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 grief that we go through, even if someone isn't dead, but if something has happened, I think should also, have a time where we really discuss it and go through it. If you want to cry during this stream, please feel free. Don't worry, take a shower. It's okay to work through this. And shadow work is literally just working through the uncomfortable things, not numbing yourself, which I'm really bad at. But it can be really unfair what happens in life, and not only the stuff to us, but, the catalog of tragedy that we get of other things, other people, other losses, the senseless losses, the stupid things that just occur, the absolute lottery of misfortune that we win. We don't win anything else, but we win, some friend gets stung by a jellyfish in Rhode Island and has the one in a million allergic reaction and dies. Or someone dry drowns after a day on the lake. How do you even do that? You have no idea that happens. Find out a friend kills herself after, a childhood of being molested by one of her teachers. And it all makes sense all the times that teacher wanted to be alone with that student, especially on, when they were the chaperone at summer camp and all the kids in the school district would go to it, but the teacher only wanted to really take that one student on a canoe ride. It all fucking makes sense. And the grief that comes with that. Not like you can do anything. The same as, I wonder about the widows and the children of the people that tried to do something about the flights that were hijacked, the people that just went to work to provide for their families and just never came home, the firefighters, the emergency responders, the pedestrians in New York City who were just trying to do what came naturally to them, and to be the person who has lost because of something so incessantly random. It seems almost diabolical. The statistic for that to go down. But, with that being said, you can't blame yourself. It's not like this individual is a hamster in a cage and their whole life was up to you. Just get it the right food, the right pellets, the enrichment, a water bottle, and it's fine. Human life is so messy. Life is just the universe experiencing itself in such multitudes and magnitudes. It's bound to reach some ends sooner than others. And I think the randomness of the universe is replicated in the randomness and the things that we just call chance or bad luck or, a Rubes Goldberg of little teeny tiny events that can create a butterflies effect if stepped backwards. You know what I mean? Like, we can't blame ourselves for these brutal things and these sudden losses. How could you have planned? You can, and we can't take that on. I think a really giant part of at least starting to heal, at least having a grain of sand of healing, because it's a lot to heal. Grief is complex and it can, it's a journey. But to at least acknowledge to yourself that there's really nothing you could have done, and that's okay. You can't hinge what you haven't done based on, dude, you were a child. Someone hijacked a plane, like some things just happen. I never in a million years would have thought Jess would have fallen into drugs and prostitution. I honestly thought I would do that before her. Completely full disclosure. I really could never have seen what happened to her, how she deteriorated so quickly. And so often I want to blame myself, like, oh, I should have done something. I should have talked to her more. The fuck? Like this predates me. This is not about me. And the complexity of other people's lives and the entanglements other people get themselves into and find themselves in is independent of us, despite the relationship we have with them. Jess and I, we were basically sisters. We we were together, attached at the hip, 99% of the time when we were in proximity to each other. I never saw this happening with her. And then when it started happening that I didn't know what to do, because how could I? I come from a family of dysfunctional drug addicts. Like the fact that she was acting the same way was just home to me. Um, I had another friend, Zykel, that I told you about. Dude, Zykel, since he was in high school when he got discharged from the Marines, he was diagnosed as a schizophrenic. But since then, he would just randomly stop taking his medicine, go missing, show up a couple of months later at a VA hospital, and then get put back on medicine, get his life back on track, go missing. His mom would hire a private detective. Like it was just cyclical. It was just constant with him. But he was my best friend. I didn't care. I would always be there for him with a cup of coffee and a pack of cigarettes every time he got discharged from any kind of fucking mandatory stay at a fucking mental hospital. That was my homie. And the last time he went missing, I knew it was going to happen. I saw it coming. And then when he actually went missing, I really thought about quitting my job and like just going to California and just finding him. I had absolutely no idea how. I had no plan. I had no inkling of where in California he was. Absolutely no idea. But I was so irrational in my codependency for my friend I was trauma bonded to, dude. I literally was willing to just continue that dynamic, and I knew not. I knew. I was just like, come on. Like this has gotten to the point where like if I continue it, I am definitely enabling you because you wanted to go missing, go missing. Even though you're mentally ill, I'm not your mother. I'm your friend, and like I cannot take care of you. I can't sacrifice myself to take care of you, even though I want to. And then just allowing the grief of, my friend's gone to, wow, it's been years and no one's heard from him. Is he dead? To, I guess I'll never fucking know. And that kind of grief is also brutal. Not knowing what happens to people, not understanding the dynamic of why it had to happen. And sometimes there really is no explanation. It's just so out of our hands. It really fucking is. And it's so hard to just let that in and let that out like a fucking like cold, crisp autumn breath. it stings, but it's refreshing and oh wow, it's the changing of a season. It's almost a new year. Like this stings, breathing this cold air. But you have to breathe. You have to let that in and out. And that's always been hard for me, and, like, just like, with my grandparents, how they've died, each individually, and then, like, together, a culmination, and they end up in what? A fucking Ziploc sandwich bag? Not even that they each have their own Ziploc bag, no. We're too fucking cheap and dysfunctional and erratic. We put the 2 fucking remains in one damn bag, and we're like, "Alright, check that off the mental." Like, I don't even know when I was presented a literal Ziploc bag and like, "Oh, this is your grandparents." It's like, "Oh, it's both of them?" I can't. I'll show you them. I can't right now. Oh my gosh. Insane. Absolutely insane. And you know, I think it's also unrealistic that no one is going to have to no one's going to be touched by these insane deaths or scenarios. If someone has no dysfunctional bullshit like this, then they are blessed. They are God's favorite, I swear, because that's incalculable. I'm bad at statistics. I don't count cards in Vegas, but I feel like that bullshit is just like that's some bullshit. I don't know. I don't know. But I'm going to take a second and to look at everyone's comments really quickly. And I see that no one has commented. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. All right, all right. Well, I'm just going to keep it pushing. I think no matter what death it is, whether it's someone's been murdered or dies in a house fire or, you know, alone in an old people home with dementia, whatever happens, there always is going to be a sense of, shame and like I could have done better, even if it's been something like irrational or unprecedented or really brutal and unexpected. We're always going to look at ourselves like there's something we could have done, and I want to tell you right now, like that's just such a hallmark and an indicator of how much love you had for that person and you still have. And what is grief if not the love that remains? It's the love that has no place to go. Um, and I think, anger that has no place to go, that's just ends up being turned inward, becomes such immense sadness. And that combination, can really hinder our healing journey and our grief journey. I think it's valid no matter what kind of death or grief we're feeling or handling. Um, whatever whatever stage we're at, it's important to just, take a minute and to just validate and honor what we're feeling and going through with our grief and to check in with ourselves and say, hey, like grandma and grandpa died. Your dad is drug addict living under a bridge. Mom is narcissistic, crazy woman in a fucking mental institution. The rest of the family basically just had not wanted nothing to do with you. So it's okay to feel these extreme ways. You came from an extreme environment. The deaths are pretty extreme. There will be extreme feelings. So you have to let yourself feel that, I think is really important. Sometimes these traumatic and brutal deaths can linger with us in lots of ways. And I think that lingering is unresolved emotion that we are hiding from ourselves. Like, I know that, like, and this is gonna sound so stupid, but, like, I'm polytheistic. I have, I'm non-Judeo. Oh, look, a baby spider. Non-Judeo-Christian about my religious beliefs. I don't want to put you in the fire. Okay, there you go. Okay. And people all the time say like, "Oh, my loved one died. I saw a canary." Or, "Oh, my loved one died, but a butterfly landed on my car." That was my mom. And when my grandparents died, I kind of was looking forward to having that moment where they come to me. And I just feel like, oh, they're at peace, all is well. They apologize. They realize, almost like it was some kind of closure or some kind of, goodbye and acknowledgement of, our relationship and like, oh, that they are dead and gone, that their soul is a thing, whatever the case may be, right? And nothing. Like I had a family member was like, "Oh yeah, like, grandma came to me as whatever." And I was just like, "Oh, that's nice. So grandma likes you more than me? Huh? Huh, motherfucker? Huh?" Um, and then I think about it like, grandma died in such a fucked up way that and like grandpa died in an even more fucked up way. And I was like, yo, like if I was either of them, I would be so fucking done with the material plane. Like, I wouldn't want to come back and say goodbye. Like, I wouldn't want to fucking say anything to you. Like, and like sometimes, oh, and I don't want to say it, but I'm gonna say it because it's just cathartic. So I'm sorry if I start crying. Well, like, I know that when my mom and dad had me, it was like my dad impregnated an immigrant who didn't speak English, and my grandma was like really racist, which was stupid because she was also an immigrant. And with my grandpa or with my dad being like a piece of shit invalid, like just a drug addict, alcoholic, in and out of jail and rehab, literally since he was a teenager. He's in his yeah, late 50s now. Nothing has changed. Um and my mom being literally just like mentally fucking unstable, just being like out of her fucking mind. And like, I get it, she has her own problems, but like, my dad and mom should never have gotten together. A Cancer and an Aries, a fucking Cancer from Colombia and an Aries from Brooklyn. Get out of here. That's why we have me, who is a problem. I can't. Um, I think my grandparents really just like felt like that old Italian sense of duty of just like, well, we keep it in the family. And they just like kept me, but like, I don't think that they felt like I was their child. I don't think that they felt like I was anything to them other than like my dad's bastard that they were just going to take care of out of principle. And they did to the best of their abilities and like but like that's they were equally as sick as my dad to the point that like their entire family, grandpa was one of like 12, grandma was one of 9, I don't even know. And everyone was like, you deal with your son yourself, like we're not dealing with that. And then when I was born, no one cared, no one was involved. So I think it was almost just like very it was hard for my grandparents. It was bittersweet for them. They were tired. And I think that's why when grandma was just like, get me the priest and put me in the living room, I'm ready to watch my shows and fuck off. And it's like, grandma, all right. I guess I'll watch you. I'll keep a vigil. I don't know. I don't know what to do. How do you know what to do in these situations? Because no one fucking talks about it, right? Oh, my friends. I feel like I'm just rambling and therefore I should just get off. But I'm gonna check one more time to see if anyone commented. All right, that's okay. But if at any point you watch this and you want to comment, please feel free. I always respond to my comments. Life is just, there's so much to life, so much that is before us and that doesn't involve us, but will affect us. There's so much that we are affected by, but are not in control of. And I think part of being prepared for whatever stressor there is just to acknowledge that there is such frailty and fleetingness, and anything can really happen. And that's a really good way to prepare. And not that anyone should have to prepare. It sucks that we have to learn about these things ourselves, but while we do, please, I'm here to help you. There's so much cruelty and tragedy in the world. And it's only felt really by those who survive it, those who remain, those who linger and ruminate, still feel it. And we somehow, for some reason, blame ourselves. And we need to not. That's not going to help us accept and heal and, ultimately let go of these feelings and these things we've been harboring. But that's also really part of shadow work, and that's really hard. So it all takes time. So that's why I'm really happy that you were able to join me for just this, I don't know, this hour that we've been hanging out and chit-chatting. I really do appreciate that, not only you've witnessed me put in work, but by being here, you also are putting in work. And it is work, and I commend you on it. It's work that a lot of people don't do, and a lot of people don't want to do. It's uncomfortable and it's emotional, but you have been through so much that I know you will be able to get through this. You'll be able to adapt and, learn about yourself and really, have such respect for yourself to know that like you can handle whatever is happening. And like I really don't want anyone else to have to deal with it. I'm not saying like, oh yeah, let's get ready for the next one, the next tragedy. But, life is gonna be life. We can't really assume that there's gonna be no more tragedy. All we can do is prepare ourselves mentally to know we can handle it. I will show up authentically and I will allow myself to grieve. And grieving is a lot of anger, sadness, guilt, shame, confusion. It's a lot of emotions. So you have to let yourself feel all of those emotions. Ah, and it's okay to feel that. It's okay to be angry at the people who have caused it, at the people who failed to prevent it. It's okay to be angry at yourself for not saying something beforehand or acting a certain way afterwards or whatever. All of these things are okay to feel. We just can't let that dictate how we feel about ourselves in totality. Like, I feel like such a total piece of shit for not just taking the reins on it and being like, no, I'm getting my grandpa out of that situation. I don't care if grandpa doesn't want to go, I'm getting him. Or I'm taking grandma out of the house and she can die in a beautiful cottage by the ocean like she's always wanted. And we can fulfill her last wishes and we're not going to have any patriarchal bullshit keeping us from that. I really do feel almost an inability to not blame myself. I had a friend who uh her parent was murdered, and she feels resentful at herself for not doing more to stop, the abuse. And it's like, girl, you were literally 5. I'm sorry, but like you were so powerless and helpless, the same way that, you know, so many things can happen in life. I don't think it's a reflection on how much we've loved them in the way that people meet the end of their life. All we can really do is just be certain that we have loved them for their entire lives. And that sounds hollow and not enough, but you know what I mean? Can't be happy. We can't be happy all the time. We could get half price hot dogs at the fucking gas station on Thursday nights like a sad bachelor, but we can't be that well adjusted. There's gotta be paywalls to this fucking shit. I don't know. But yeah, I appreciate you for joining me and taking this time to just at least give yourself the opportunity to meet yourself on like a really deep level without shame and without judgment. And we could just say the fucked up thing. We could just say whatever's taboo and talk about, the things that need to get talked about. That's how we heal. So I'm going to put on, some more calming melodic music and try to ground myself again, really put myself in my body, blow out the candles, and do a little wishful prayer for the nighttime. And I invite you to do the same. And then, until next time, my name is Daniela. We meet every Monday and Wednesday here at the Salt Circle. And I really hope to see you on Monday. Okay, my friends? Here, I'm gonna put the music on, all right? All right. 1 second. Okay, I'm just trying to get a good thumbnail. Oh, you see my knee? That's kind of weird. Whatever.
Are you the next martyr, or merely a pawn of fate? Bearer of the curse, I will remain by your side till this frail hope shatters. Take this with you. May it ease your journey.